Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Allen and joined by my usual podcast partner, former NHL defenseman Tom Laidlaw, who played for many years, of course, with the New York Rangers and Los Angeles Kings. And some people know him for appearing on the CBS Survivor Series. But here on our podcast, he's just our lead analyst. And we're going to just...
I'm not happy. I'm not a happy analyst today either.
Oh, you're not happy? What are you unhappy about?
You're a Giant fan. I love the Giants, and they just sucked yesterday. No effort.
Yeah.
God, your Lions did pretty well, though, didn't they?
Yeah, they did, actually. Yeah. They broke I forget, is it an 11-game losing streak? I've lost track, because they didn't win at all after Matthew Stafford went down last year, and they played pretty well. The offense has been good even during the losses, and Galladay is back from injury, but the defense is still – no pressure on the quarterback. They took advantage of a young quarterback yesterday. That's kind of how I felt. Had he, a year from now, he'd have won that game. He just too many interceptions and that kind of thing. But the Lions have a long way to go. So as do the Giants.
Oh God. Well, at least they had the first two games they played with some fire. They almost beat Chicago. They were playing hard. The Jets just don't even play hard at all. But then yesterday for the Giants, it's San Francisco had a depleted lineup, all the injuries they had and everything, and they just didn't show up. So,
yeah,
not a fun day.
Yeah, the NFL is interesting now. All those years I covered the NHL, and I did some NFL. I'd pop in, they'd parachute me in to do a game here and there. But now, of course, as a freelancer, I'm doing both the NFL and the NHL. And working for a betting site, and because of that, I've really had to pay attention, and I'm just fascinated by Russell Wilson and how well he's playing in Seattle. I mean, the guy's got 14 touchdown passes in 3 weeks, and I wrote about the Cowboys yesterday. So Dak Prescott, his last two games, 922 yards passing,
And Aaron Rodgers too, right? I mean, there isn't anybody all concerned about Rodgers because they drafted that other quarterback, and maybe Rodgers is going to be all upset or whatever.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You can draft all you want, but if the incumbent is still playing at a high level, you're not moving him out. But anyway, let's move to hockey. There's a bunch of things I want to talk about. I want to talk about the Stanley Cup Final, which resumes tonight with Game 6. But before we do. There was a trade involving the Detroit Red Wings and New York Rangers, and essentially it was a payment received, a second-round pick, for taking Mark Stahl's contract off the Rangers' hands. And let me give you my take on from both perspectives. I think this is a terrific deal for the Rangers because, they were hamstrung by their salary cap position. And now they lose a guy who's not as valuable as a lot of other guys to them. And they gave up a second-round pick. Now, second-round picks are valuable. I'm not saying that. But I think that cap space is more valuable right now.
And they've got lots of draft picks, too. They've had a lot of first-round picks lately. They've got the first overall pick in the draft this year still. So I think that you're right. It's still a second-round pick, and that could turn out to be a player down the road. But they can afford to do that. And Mark Stahl had a fantastic career here too. He took some heat sometimes from the fans in particular. And I understand that. I think it kind of reminds he played kind of like I did, right? Where it wasn't his job to do any, make big fancy plays. So sometimes you watch him play and you think, well, he's not doing anything. But I really feel like he was a leader. The guy showed up all the time, played hurt, really did the penalty killing and blocking shots. So he was good. But yeah, I think it helps both sides. It's a smart move by Eisenman to get that second round pick, and he's still a serviceable player. He's got a young team there in Detroit. Assuming, I guess, I don't think they're going to buy him out or anything. I think they're going to use him. I would assume. I certainly would, because I think he just in the locker room with that young team in Detroit. Even if you only have him for a year or two, I think is pretty useful.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why you're the lead analyst. I just think you hit the nail on the head there. There you go.
Did I just become the lead analyst?
Yeah, it's promotion.
Oh,
came in last night.
Okay.
Anyway, I think Eisenman's thought process is exactly what you articulated. I don't think they're going to buy out Stahl. Not at all. I mean, I think he's coming in to be a veteran defenseman to do what he does. not anymore. And I think that'll be the conversation they have, just because, you're, more crucial to our success here than maybe you were in New York. Don't try to do more. We need you to do what you do best.
Absolutely.
And, Yzerman gets that second round pick. And this is really where he shines. Like, if you look at him historically, he's made some bold moves, the Druin trade for Sergachev. That's been a great trade for Tampa Bay. But it's really been the smaller trades, Conacher for Ben Bishop, getting Kyle Quincy and then flipping him to Detroit, and getting a first-round pick, and then drafting, Vasilevsky. But what Yzerman does is, I think fans in Detroit, thought, well, we got Yzerman, we got a high-profile name. He'll come in and he'll entice other high-profile free agents. That's how we're going to build. Yeah. And that's not really what he does. He puts together a bunch of draft picks. He drafts well. And you look at his drafting history, Kucherov, second-round pick, Brayden Point, third-round pick. If he does that in Detroit, they'll be fine, if he can hit on those measure of draft picks. And I think that's why this was such a good trade for Detroit. They still got plenty of cap space left to do whatever they want to do. They could do this again. Yeah. They have the ability to do that. They've got to sign Anthony Mantha and Bertuzzi. Those are important players to sign, but they'll still have cap space left after that. So I thought this was a really good move. I give Gordon credit, the GM in New York, for coming up with this. And the other thing about this I think is important is, and I mentioned this in my story, how many rumors did we hear about this deal happening?
Nothing. Yeah.
Not a word.
Yep.
And that is the way Yzerman operates.
Yeah. And Jeff Gordon too. He's pretty good that way as well. Like, he's not big in the media or dropping hints around town.
No.
Yeah. And you know what I'd like to, and I don't know how the conversation went between the two general managers, obviously, but I would assume Gordon, obviously Gordon's just looking to get rid of the player and the contract. So he probably offered him to Steve for next to nothing. But Steve was smart enough and patient enough to say, well, that's not enough. I need to get a second round draft pick. Probably asked for a first round pick too. But it reminds me a lot of Joe Sakic. Remember that, was it 2 summers ago or 3 summers ago, where he was trying to get rid of I can't remember his name now. He's ended up in Nashville now, but everybody was clamoring for him to move the player, and he just waited. Duchesne, yes, and waited, and I remember when the trade happened, and I didn't like. It wasn't like I predicted, but I was thinking to myself, well, no, just let everybody else is in a panic mode. Like in Colorado's case back then, they weren't close to winning a Stanley Cup. There's no hurry. Wait until somebody is in trouble, and now they need to make a trade, and he did that. And it's the same thing here with Steve. He's in no hurry to do really anything. I mean, he's just, like you said, he'll draft players and make smart moves along the way, and he was no hurry to do anything with the Stahl, and worked out pretty well for him.
Yeah, and boy, a lot of that opens up some options for D'Angelo. They don't have to trade him if they don't want. There's also
that's an excellent point by you. You're the assistant analyst there on that one, but that was an excellent point.
I mean, that just this is just a slick move.
Yep.
And those are the best kind of deals when you can get together. And I think back to the 1980s, and I've talked to a number of general managers through the years, and you hear lawyers talking like this too. Like, if you can make a deal where you make the other lawyer look good, those are the best kind of deals. And you can think you want it and you got the best of it, but you better make sure the other guy looks good too, because he's got to sell it to his group. And
if you don't help him look good too, that's the last deal you're going to make with that guy, right? Or else he's
that's right. So you got to do, and when you're done, you got to say, oh well, boy, he pushed me hard on this, and you got to do all that. Right. And in this case, we don't have to spin anything. Both teams got what they wanted.
Yeah, totally.
It was a very, it was a very professional deal, and one that was, carefully crafted. And I wonder if it was either Gordon or it was Steve Yzerman, one or the other, that realized that there was a perfect fit here. Two teams that sort of needed each other. And I'm sure Yzerman thought, I'd like to bring in a veteran guy, but I'd like to get a second round pick for doing that. Take someone else's cap space.
This is a good question too. We'll touch on that, but the Henrik Lundqvist situation, to my knowledge, nothing's really changed. I have the gut feeling. I'd have no information, but I have the gut feeling that he is going to get bought out. But
yeah, I believe he is, and I think that's already been decided. I have heard that there was some talk that he might go back to Sweden and play, but I've heard no, that he wants to play in the NHL. And I'll just put it this way: there are teams in the NHL that are operating as if he's going to be available in the marketplace.
Oh, is that right? Huh.
Oh yeah. They're considering him as one of their options. And all the options. Usually you have an A and a B option for what you're going to do in certain situations, but because of all the goalies available, I think there's an A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H option that you have available.
Right.
For goalies. So
where would you think that Lundqvist would go?
I mean, I don't think he's going to be the A option for a lot of teams, but I think he's definitely a B option and a C option. So, if you're targeting Holtby, and to be honest, I would take Lundqvist on a 1-year deal before I would take Holtby on a multi-year deal. That's how I feel. Yep, I think King Henrik is still a quality goalkeeper, and I especially like the idea. I don't like, and anybody who's followed me on podcasts knows this, I don't like long-term deals for goalies. I think no matter if it's over a couple or 3 years, you're setting yourself up for trouble. Sometimes
there's very few, right? I mean, Carey Price, those guys, you want to get them locked up, but you're right. I mean, other than those, like you look at Pittsburgh now, with Murray locked up, and then is that really turned out to be the way they wanted it to be? We talk about Marc-Andre Fleury. He has had some great moments and won Stanley Cups, but he's had some other times where, man, you kind of question what's going on.
Yeah, well, it's, and we've talked about it before. It has to do with the fact that there's only one number one goalie. You play 6 defensemen, sometimes 7. You play 12 forwards, or at least 11. And, if you make a mistake on a guy, he can still play in your lineup. You make a mistake on a goalie, he sits.
Goalie. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, it's kind of, interesting how that works out. But I would say there are a lot of teams, that are looking at Holtby. Everyone's waiting to see what Markstrom does.
Right.
Is Vancouver going to get him re-signed or not?
Right.
I think people are waiting to see what happens with Marc-Andre Fleury. And Kemper is a really hot commodity in the trade market. Really? Now, the only issue is, under normal circumstances, I think everybody would be climbing all over each other to get Kemper. But what happens now is a GM says to himself, do I want to pay a steep price, maybe a first-round pick, to get a real quality guy like Kemper, or do I want to just get somebody and not give anything up?
Fill the gap right now. Like a Brayden Point could still, like you said, on a 1 or 2 year deal, could still turn out to be a good player, right? And to me, if I get a Brayden Point to sign to a 2-year deal, let's say, he still is a proud guy. He wants to, would rather sign a 7-year contract. So you say, listen, I can only give you the 2 right now, but this is a fantastic opportunity for you here. If you go play great for 2 years, then you're back in the market again. So, yeah, I'm with you. I'm not going to – if I'm any team, I don't know why I'm going to – like I'm looking at Murray in Pittsburgh. Like, why would somebody trade for him when you can get other goaltenders that are in that same category, right?
Well, and what is his category? Like, he didn't play well this season. Yeah. We've seen him play well. We know he can play well. He's a cup winner. Yeah. So I think his lure is still his age. He's 25 and under.
Yeah.
And that's about the time goalies actually start in the NHL. And, he's pretty experienced for a 25-year-old. So, I look at maybe Minnesota. Bill Guerin knows him from Pittsburgh, saw him in his best of times.
Right.
So
that's a good point too. What about St. Louis? What are they going to do? They traded away Jake Allen, right, to Montreal, so they're going to need another goaltender there.
Yeah, they're going to have to get a backup.
Right. So that's the spot, for like the Holtby kind of guys or whatever. I mean, like an opportunity, or maybe not a Holtby. Holtby. See, my problem sometimes too is that Holtby is still probably viewed as a number one goaltender, right? So I don't really want him to go into St. Louis where they have their number one goaltender. Now you've got like a controversy almost. I know it's a good insurance thing, but it's like I like having like that clear number one guy. Like Boston has Rask, who's clearly the number one guy. Halak can step in and do the job if they need him, like they did in the playoffs. So, I mean, that's
I look at for St. Louis, I'd look at guys like Grice.
Yes.
Reimer,
Yeah, Marassa.
Jimmy Howard, who may not be a number one anymore.
Jimmy Howard's still going to have. I hate to say this awful. It sounds terrible because I'm on the player side, but is he going to have a job?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, he was great for 2 seasons, and last year he was terrible. So what you always run into in these situations when you got goalies who starting to creep, well into the 30s. So is that 33, 34, 35? I don't know. Yeah. You decide that. Once you start creeping in that, then you start to wonder, well, has the guy just had an off year or are the wheels falling off? Right. So that's what you don't know. But
the one situation, I'd love to be a fly on the wall in Vegas, so know what's going on there.
Yeah, I mean, that's really messy. And, he's got them a little bit because now he's telling everybody, I'd like to just stay. Well, they can't sign Leonard for $5 million and $7 million, have $12 million in goalies.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like they can't do that. So I'm going to have to ask him for his list.
Right.
10 teams that he won't go to. And, they're still going to have to try to work out a deal.
Yeah, I don't know. But with Leonard, is he going to want, he's going to want 6 or 7 years? He probably thinks he's that good.
The rumor is that they've got an agreement for 5.
Ooh, I'm not giving Leonard 5 years.
Yeah.
There's not a lengthy enough track record there that he is that guy. I mean, he is playing well right now. He's at the top of his game, but man, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Well, as an analyst, you'd like 5-year guarantee.
I'll take a 5 year as an analyst. Yeah. We'll take my Blueberries deal, but he'll be.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't recall, and I could be wrong, but I don't think so. In my 34 years of covering the league, that's a long time, and I don't recall this many goalies being available in the trade market and / free agent market in an off season.
We had a time. Remember when Chicago first won the Cup, beating Philadelphia, right? And they basically both teams ended up with kind of backup goaltenders, wasn't it? Niemi,
yeah.
And I had Chris Mason. I was in the agent business still. And I had Chris Mason as a client. He was a free agent at that time, and it was a terrible time because everybody viewed that. Everybody's kind of following, saying, "Well, we don't need to get that high-priced number one goaltender. We'll go with the backup." Chicago won with basically what was viewed as backup goaltending. So that was stuff, not necessarily because of the numbers, but because the general managers are saying, why am I going to spend all this money on a goaltender when teams can win without that great goaltender? And that's shifted now because clearly you look at Tampa and the goaltenders have to be playing well now to win a Stanley Cup. You can't have backup goaltenders.
Yeah, but I mean, but that's a distinction that you have to have a goalie playing well, but does he got to be a great goalie? Like Anton Khudobin is not a great goalie.
But to go into the playoffs, so nobody predicted that.
No, not at all.
So it's risky to think that, okay, one of our goaltenders is going to step up.
Yeah.
But that's a good point, like with pretty much all teams that win, a goaltender has to step up or a fourth line player has to step up. Some guy that we don't expect to really play a big role plays a big role. But Point stepped up, but we all knew Point was good. Tampa may be the rare team that doesn't have that happening right now, right? Because everybody's really doing their job. Like Hedman is playing the way Hedman should play. Vasilevsky's playing the way Vasilevsky should play. Kucherov is playing the way Kucherov should play. So there's nobody really. There's no unsung hero on that team. Maybe you could look at Bogosian, Shattenkirk, maybe playing a little bit better than you thought they would, but.
Yeah, I mean they're interesting. I mean, but if that's the case, why didn't they close out Dallas in Game 5?
Well, I still think, although I think Tampa has gotten better at understanding how to win, it's still one of those things that when you watch them play, like they're 6-0 after losses. So you assume then, they'll win tonight, that they play a better game. They sit back and they say, we screwed up. We made these bad mistakes, right? We shouldn't have done, the way we win is this way. We didn't play the way we win. So now they get back to it.
Yeah, they lost, but they didn't play poorly. Him and my wife, who was a coach in high school for soccer for 20 years, she's made the point of, that it never felt like Dallas. When Dallas wins, it doesn't feel like they dominated.
Right.
They just survived. They find a way to hang on and then win. So,
how about we didn't touch on the penalty that Ben took in overtime at Game 4. There's some controversy. People thought that wasn't a penalty. I thought it was definitely a penalty. I think anytime. So what happened? Ben's battling with can't remember who the young guy for Tampa was, but they're battling to go for the puck and they're in the neutral zone. And in the old days, especially in overtime, okay, it's a battle, nothing happens. But Ben clearly stuck his free hand out and got it in front of the Tampa player. And that's a penalty. The way they call the game now, if you're going to call it in the first period like that, then you have to call it in overtime like that. Anytime you get your free hand out in front of a player, it's a penalty. So I didn't have a problem at all with the penalty. And Dallas made a little bit of noise about it, that they weren't too happy about it. But I think they understood too. Listen, they would rather it wasn't called, but it has to be called now. That's a penalty.
Well, we have a residue, I think, from people left from the days when, there was never penalties called. Nothing short of murder one was going to be called in overtime.
Oh, yeah. That's great for a defenseman like me.
Yeah.
And you're getting those.
Yeah. How many people did you hurt in overtime?
I mean, there was times, I won't mention the player, I don't want to embarrass him, played for the Flyers, and he was coming down the boards, and I two-handed him across the hands as hard as I could. No penalty called whatsoever. And next time he came down, I went two-handed him again, and he just stopped, because it's not going to get called. He's going to break my wrist. You're actually taught. Like, I remember Carol Vadney. I've talked about him so many times. Like, he was that old school guy, and he was teaching me things all the time. Great to me. And he would teach me, like I said, especially in front of the net. He says, Tommy, anything in front of the net goes. You can murder him. It does not matter. And you watch him when he played. He was like that too. It was nasty in front of the net. He'd do it.
Yeah. Well, the one point I would make about the Lightning going into Game 6 is, they do have everybody going well. I mean, Vasilevsky's not getting enough credit. Like, in normal circumstances, everybody be talking about him about the Conn Smythe, but Hedman's been good. Brayden Point's been unbelievable. Kucherov's in there as well. But Vasilevsky's done what he's supposed to do. But, his greatness is just so anticipated that, we just sort of take it for granted.
Exactly.
But I find it interesting that the one thing they don't have going is the one line with, Tyler Johnson and Killorn and I'm drawing a blank. Yannick.
You and I do that too. We draw blanks. Is that our age or something?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. But anyway, that line, they're just not scoring.
Right.
Gosh darn it.
Don't try to think about it. Just move on.
No. But anyway, what's so funny about that is think a couple of years ago when Tyler Johnson was the best Lightning forward.
Yeah.
That just shows the depth that they have. But the line that I think has really made a difference, and I don't think Brisebois, the general manager, gets enough credit for this.
Maroon?
Pardon me?
Maroon? What line you have? Maroon? Maroon's line?
No. But he added Goodrow and he added a Coleman.
Yeah.
That line. Yeah, that line has played really, really well.
What was that kind of guy that you look at the other lineup and you go, oh, God, do I have to play against this guy tonight? Because he's just nonstop, always hitting, always getting his face in there. Yeah. Speaking of the Conn Smythe, though, to me, it's got to be between Hedman and Vasilevsky. Like, I know those other guys have had spurts of like a good long spurts too where they played well, but I just think with Vasilevsky and Hedman, it's just like every game. And Hedman, to me, I'm going for Hedman. I just think he's done everything in this series. Like we talked, they got him playing with Bogosian, and Bogosian just basically goes where Hedman's not, right? Hedman does everything, like killing penalties, power plays, stepping into the zone. But I like what he does so well in the offensive zone too. Like sometimes defensemen, if they don't get active, you're basically leaving your three forwards against the five players for the opposition down the offensive zone. Where Hedman now, he moves in so close. Now it's a fourth guy that they've got to worry about. I mean, they always have to worry about all five, but he becomes like a rover. He really gets in tight on the defense, and man, he's just like, it seems like every time he gets the puck to it, he's not killing the puck. He's not trying to put it through the back of the net. He's putting it in the right spots. I just love the way he's playing. But
yeah, I do. But I think Brayden Point's points are going to capture everyone's attention. Just because they've, he's been so good. And he scored at just opportune moments. Right. You know what I mean?
You think if Tampa wins tonight, you think that Point will win the Conn Smythe?
Well, I think some of it will depend on what happens early in this game. But I think Point, he's been involved in so many big goals that I think, that's going to sway some people. But anyway, Sorelli was the guy.
Who votes on the Conn Smythe? Is that the reporters?
It's a very small panel though. It's only like I forget exactly. It might be 15 now. Yeah, it's real small.
Why do we have media members voting on the Conn Smythe? Like you're the only guy that knew what you were talking about. The rest of them don't know.
Well, who would you think would be better qualified?
That's a good point. Lead analysts that do podcasts.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Who else would you pick? Yeah, because everybody else has got a stake in the game, right? I mean, you can't pick general managers or whatever. No. So, who kind of guys like the Bob McKenzie's,
the Pierre LeBruns, those guys, Friedman's, the guys, ESPN people.
Who decides who's the 15? Like, is that the commissioner's job?
President of the Writers Association.
Oh! So you did that?
I did that. I put together.
Did you also vote on the Conn Smythe?
Sometimes I did, sometimes I didn't. I would rotate. So.
Okay. So, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
The big question, though, huge question: does Gary Bettman get booing pumped into the building if they win?
Yeah, a lot of people have talked about that. I haven't heard anything like that.
He's got to.
Yeah, I just don't know. Like, I agree with you on all this, but I don't know if it's a big enough priority for the league. Like, I just don't think they're thinking in those terms. Like all the logistics. But I do agree. Everybody would talk about it. I think Gary Bettman has a great sense of humor. I think he would have fun with it.
Right. They're trying to make the whole experience as realistic as possible, right? And how can you hand out a trophy? How can a commissioner be out there handing out a trophy without there being booing? There's always booing.
Yeah.
So,
and it's maybe the way to look at it, it'll be the first time in his tenure that we'll actually be able to hear what it is he said.
He may be, in a sense of humor, he may be wanting to do it, but he's saying, I can't go there.
Or it's just not, there's proper decorum and, piping in that. It's, I don't know. It's probably not important enough, but saying all that, I agree with you. I think it would be terribly fun, and I think everybody would love it if they did that. But, we got the draft coming up. It's almost like a week away. What is it? 6th and 7th, 7th and 8th, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that's right. I forgot it's that close. Yes. And what about the awards show? Oh, that's right. They gave out all the awards. So there's no awards show.
Right. But I don't know why we didn't do that virtually like everybody else does. We have the Emmys and the everything else. So, but I think we're going to see a lot of action at the NHL draft. I think we're going to see half a dozen to 10 trades.
Do you really? Wow.
Yeah, I do.
What makes you say that?
Well, just the salary cap situations. We have, 10, 12 teams that, got to clear up some space to figure out so they can do some stuff. And, we've got other teams that have said they're going to be lowering their, payroll.
Here's a question I have for you.
Yeah,
I had a discussion. Obviously, I'm not going to. Well, I'll be careful. I'll just throw this out there. If they want to start in January and they're still not allowed to have fans in the building, will they even play?
Yes.
You understand though? They have to pay. So the difference this year was that when the pandemic started, the teams, I think the players had all got all their paychecks. I think except for one, right?
Right.
So the problem is going to be there. And so you're losing isn't it the number like 60% of the revenue for each team is gate receipts and all the revenues that come from concessions. But they're going to have to pay out 100% of the salaries, right? Well, minus the 20% escrow, right? That's the cap on escrow. So some of these teams are going to lose, $75 to $100 million.
Well, maybe that's what Gary Bettman was hinting about when he said it's his full intention to play an 82-game schedule, but
right,
we'll see. I guess that's possible. We're starting to see, the NFL's limited people that 15,000 and a 60 thing. If you added just 2,000 people to come in and spread them around, and
I guess they do that down in Florida right now, anyways. Right, even before the pandemic, Florida was doing that.
That's better than nothing. You start small, and
so they've gone to the players and the owners have sat down and they've created this 2 years now where there's the 20% cap on the escrow, right?
Yeah,
and then there's money being paid back to the league. So is that sufficient to Like, are they saying, okay, we anticipate that we may not have fans in the building, so this is going to be the stopgap that makes it doable? Or are they able to come back to the players again and say, listen, guys, we can't play. We're losing too much money. We just won't play.
Well, I mean, players are going to want to play because they're going to want a paycheck.
Right. But then you say, okay, well, then if you want a paycheck, you're going to get it's 50%. Right.
Well, I mean, they'd have to renegotiate again.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, there's national sponsorship money, and you hit the nail on the head. It's still 60% gate revenue driven league, but I think there's an expectation there will be fans, and maybe they can start out with even some fans in the building, and
And I guess it depends on what part of the country you're at. Like, I have a hard time, like New York right now. It's September, end of September, so it'll change. Obviously, hopefully, it'll change in January. But I have a hard time seeing people in Madison Square Garden right
now. That's the point I would worry about. Like, we don't know what January will look like.
Yeah.
As I went and got my flu shot, and I looked and I saw the provisions that my local drugstore has made to give out flu shots, and they have COVID testing right at the drugstore now. We wouldn't be doing that if we didn't think, there was potential for trouble here. So that doesn't mean we're going to have it, but it means it's certainly possible. And we're starting to see, I just saw this morning, there was a couple of new hot spots in New York, one in Queens and one in Brooklyn.
Yep.
You're seeing them, and
yep.
It's just pockets, and I know everybody wants to just start their lives, but we don't know. Like, if it stays like this, I would assume we'll have fans of some form, probably not 100%.
Yeah, but again, not here in New York, you wouldn't. If it stays the way it is right now, because we're still basically shutting things down. What's your fantastic wife? Is she building like an addition on the house there or something? Or what's she doing?
What's she doing today?
Yeah.
No. What are you doing today, Tara? He wants to know what you're working on. Oh no, she ripped apart her gardens over the last week, so there's still the rest of that she's got to deal with.
Okay, good. She's not building an addition on the house or anything like that.
No, not at all. So,
all right. Okay. You could though.
Next week, she said. Okay. All right. Well, as always, it's playoff time. We've gone overtime. We've gone 2:15 in, and Tom Laidlaw's been the star of the game. So
clear winner.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll move on. We'll talk to you later in the week. I'm Alan. He's Laidlaw. Thank you.
Talk to you later.